Okay, so starting this, sorry, I can't look at myself while I talk. Starting this video, hopefully, uh, maybe I make this into something where I talk about my thoughts on things and research I'm doing. Thinking I'm just gonna upload this to YouTube as a document for myself, eventually downloading it, but I'm researching right now the default mode network and how it plays into general psychiatry and how we use it and how it. Sorry, my mom just texted me. And how our brains use it to regulate the reality around us is essentially what I'm thinking about, because from what I know at a very surface level at this point, your default mode network is so involved in imagination, basically rumination, and I'm assuming it's involved in those processes because of its expanse over the different areas of your brain. I'm trying to really keep the language high level because I don't know a whole lot at this point, but yeah, the default mode network in charge of imagination, rumination, might tend to alter your reality because it takes away from your ability to execute executive functions or your executive control network. It takes away from the power of that. And again, I don't know if that's like a linear one-to-one relationship, but just off of the I've read like two, and skimmed them, two papers. Just off of what I've seen so far, it looks like your default mode network ends up overpowering your executive control network, your ECN, which is also, I guess that has different names. It's like a prefrontal or something like that. There's other names for it, but that's what I've been reading it as so far. It ends up either overpowering that, or it becomes so strong that your salient network has trouble switching between the two. And so I guess the example, what's led me to this point has been me reading, and I know I'm not speaking very well, but what's led me to this point has been, sorry, I'm getting texts from my family at the same time. What's led me to this point was, a couple of reasons, right? Like, I guess this specifically is because looking into the default mode network was because I've realized as I'm reading recently, I'm reading the words on the page, but like a sentence later, I'm forgetting what was said, and I'm having a lot of trouble putting the info into something cohesive and keeping track of that. And so I've realized that my brain, and like the reason the reason why I forget, and the reason why I'm having trouble stringing these pieces of information together to make something like a cohesive idea, is because as I'm reading, I'm kind of like immediately taking the information and rolling it into how I think it affects me, where I think it affects me in my life, examples of what I'm reading. Unless it's like a story, like a fiction story about someone's life, and I can picture them like traveling through their day, I'm having a lot of trouble holding on to facts and kind of using facts to build some sort of aphorism, or like I just learned that word yesterday, or some sort of idea, concept. So yeah, because I've noticed that in the past like 4 months, I've read a couple books. I've read like 14 books since November, so I've had a lot of practice, and I've realized that even though I'm reading a lot, I'm still having trouble with retaining and just building information, and so that I'm able to recall concepts and ideas later on. Maybe I've went in a circle, but I've had that thought for a while now, and I want to get better at it. And I've just thought that, okay, well, maybe the solution to it is to picture and imagine what I'm reading. So like just a very high level example, it says, let's say there's a fact that says your brain uses this input to generate emotions. I'm literally picturing a brain, and I'm picturing a brain like with a little factory on the end of it pushing out emotions, because I'm just trying to visualize something. And while that works for some things, I don't think that that's like a very, I'd rather just instantly sort of take information in and use that to build a concept versus trying to turn it into imagery to imagine that. Even though, based on a book that I just read, which is called 12 Brain Rules by John Medina, he's a molecular biologist, even though combining that imagery, that mental imagery, with what you're reading is very effective, I don't think it's the most efficient. So all these things considered, I'm starting to get into read, and so then that brings me to, okay, so I found out about the default mode network because on an Instagram post it said, okay, your default mode network is in charge of imagination and managing high level concepts. And so just off of that, I just saw this yesterday. Today's the April 22nd, 2026. I just saw this on the 21st yesterday, Tuesday. And I was reading it and I thought to myself, I was laying in bed and I thought to myself, like, okay, if this is in charge of imagination, and I feel like my imagination is really what ends up kind of running on when I'm reading, I wonder what more I can, what else this has to do with, and like if this is something I can train. So then last night when I was in bed, I just ended up looking up on Google Scholars a bit on the default mode network, and then that's kind of how I've gotten to this point this morning. I'm just doing a little bit more research. And this line right here, the science of large-scale brain networks offers a powerful paradigm for investigating cognitive and affective dysfunction in psychiatric and neurological disorders. So I'm reading this, and then I'm also thinking to myself, like, oh, okay, this plays into my life because I've always kind of feared that I have some like severe ADHD, because it's really hard for me to retain information and whatnot. I'm more of a person who succeeds through attrition and just kind of like pushing through, and I don't want that to be my default mode moving through life. And so, there's that side of things. And my mom is also really sick right now. She's kind of suffering from a sort of dementia, and that's really hard. And just knowing and when I say knowing, I mean like the ideas of things, because I really don't know. I haven't done the textbook research on this, but like just knowing how genealogy, or I guess genetics rather, play into like our mental health. And also that was a topic that was covered in that 12 Brain Rules book by John Medina. Was he talked about how your brain, like a lot of your functions from your brain and cognitive processes actually stem from your mother, because a lot of the proteins and like building blocks in your brain are built up off of X chromosomes, and your mother has 2 X chromosomes, and they have like, I think it's like 1,500 sequences, or I forgot what the exact terminology is, but you get like 1,500 per X chromosome, and your Y chromosomes only have 100 pieces of unique information. And so like the building block for your brain, the building blocks for your brain that you get from X chromosomes are much more than what you would get from your Y chromosome. So all that to say, you get a lot more of like your brain functions from your mother. So thinking about that, thinking about the condition my mother is in, and just trying to kind of have the foresight of like, okay, if I already struggle with retaining information and managing it now at a high level, and like I know I can sense this process as I'm like, I have this metacognition that I'm going through as I'm reading, where I realize like, oh wow, like I don't remember a line ago, like I can't recall how this information plays into the bigger idea. All those things considered, I want to start doing a little bit more research on that, and maybe making a couple hypotheses across, along the way, and just documenting what I find. So I figured I would make this video for myself in the future, just to provide myself with some documentation that I had a little bit of foresight if I do happen to come upon some research. I'm not a, I have a degree in construction management. I'm not someone who has studied sciences, but I've always loved sciences, so I've got that. Like it's something I want to do, but I'm not an expert in it. So I guess this is just me documenting the process to see, what I find and how that goes, and maybe improve. I guess it's just for down the line, like thinking, oh man, this is so cool. Like I had this idea and this is what I found that matches. Just seeing how good my predictions and my, my connecting of the dots, it really is. So I guess that's it. If you've watched this somehow, I don't know how you would. I'm planning on not sharing this. I'm just gonna upload it and maybe just keep it for myself. But if you've seen this, awesome. Let me know what you think, and maybe if you see this 2 or 3 years from now, AI's already solved all this. So thanks. Have a good week.